Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the Secretary General and her team for coming in. I'm conscious that you've been here for quite some time now, and thank you for being here. Chair, you touched upon the issue of Poolbeg earlier on, and I had wanted the opportunity to come in then to also pick up on some issues relating to that. So I'll take that opportunity now, if I may. It is in my constituency of Dublin South East, but Chair, as you alluded to, it's a bigger issue than just a local one. And I thought I might just ask in the first instance to give myself a better understanding, because there has been some confusion, I suppose, part of it generated by the media, as to what role the department has here in relation to the Poolbeg incineration project. Did you authorise the incinerator? Can you interfere with what is happening there? So who has control over this project?
The City Council is the controlling authority on behalf of the 4 local authorities in the Dublin. It's a regional project, yes, as part of the Dublin Regional Waste Management Plan.
Because the councillors in the Dublin City Council didn't vote for this incinerator, and the department didn't decide to go ahead with this incinerator. So does that mean that the power to make this decision rests solely then with the city manager in Dublin City Council, or the city managers of those 4 local authorities?
I would have to say that the Dublin Waste Management Plan is consistent with national policy in relation to waste management, and was prepared in compliance with national policy in place since the late 1990s. But the responsibility for preparing a waste plan rests with the local authority, and the responsibility for implementing particular measures within the waste plan rests with the local authority.
Incineration has been national policy since when, as part of the waste management framework?
Well, incineration or waste recovery is part of the accepted waste hierarchy at EU level, so it's part of EU legislation for many years. We prepared a national waste policy in, I think it was 1998, called Changing Our Ways, which I suppose it was prepared following preparation of new legislation, the Waste Management Act in 1996. Waste management policy has evolved very significantly, clearly, over the intervening 12-15 years. There has been a new waste framework directive adopted at EU level. The outline of the waste policy is still, if you like, completely consistent with EU waste policy. But as you're aware, the Minister for the Environment is in the process of the preparation of a new policy statement, and there are a number of aspects, I suppose, of the waste sector and waste industry generally to be covered by that policy.
So it's been EU policy for a number of years, and I suppose it's been national policy for a number of years under different governments. But then who makes that actual decision that we're going to build an incinerator on the Poolbeg Peninsula? Because the local councillors didn't approve that, the elected representatives of the people. The minister in the department, who again is elected by the people and put there by the Taoiseach on behalf of the people, says he can't interfere. So who makes that decision, and who gets to stick by that decision, and how do we hold that person to account?
I would have to go back into history at this stage, Deputy, but the Waste Management Act of 1996 provided for the preparation of waste management plans by authorities individually or in regional groups. The local authorities came together in various configurations and prepared their waste management plans. There was very considerable difficulty around the adoption of waste management plans in the late 1990s. There was ultimately legislation prepared by the Minister for the Environment of the time that ultimately gave authority to the management of local authorities to adopt waste management plans, which couldn't otherwise be, if you like, got across the line. Again, we were in a difficult position here where we had EU commitments to be met and an inability to, if you like, secure the adoption of plans.
I think we might have met our landfill commitments actually before introducing incineration in the Dublin region, but in relation to the executive function, waste management policy is an executive function of the managers in the Dublin region, the 4 local authorities. Who controls the spend, though? You give the person the decision. How much can that person spend, or those people spend, before the department has to step in and say, hold on a second, this is too much money, or we're not sure what's happening here?
The department would view a local authority as an independent tier of government as far as this is concerned.
So would the city manager of that local authority then be able to spend as much money as they would like to spend on
It's the city manager's responsibility.
And how is he held to account on that? The 80 million plus that was spent, say, so far on this project up till now. How does he,
all expenditure as far as the city manager is concerned will be reflected and should be reflected in the accounts for Dublin City Council. The accounts for Dublin City Council are independently audited by the Local Government Audit Service. The Local Government Audit Service present the audit report. The city manager should be held to account by the elected members of the local authority. There is provision in legislation for an audit committee of the local authority. We were ultimately not especially satisfied that the provisions for audit committees in the 2001 Local Government Act were sufficiently robust. In the middle, around 2006, new provisions were put in place, but all local authorities at this stage have audit committees independently chaired and with membership from the elected members, as well as external membership. So the local government auditor presents the audit and the manager's response to the audit committee, and in turn to the full council, and it's the role of the elected members to hold the manager to account.
Is there a need for a role for this committee or a subcommittee of this committee to be looking at those issues, given the amount of money that does go, some 4 to 5 billion that comes from central government funding, to local authorities, and we can't pursue it in most cases beyond that point? And what it's left to is councillors, and they may be very effective in their job, but the fact of the matter is we are full-time in this role, and we do have a special committee that is staffed especially for that. Is there a role for us to start taking over some of this auditing? And, sorry?
You could vote for my bill.
I couldn't do that, Chair. I couldn't do that. I haven't seen it yet. Would it be your opinion that there would be a role for this committee?
I don't think I can have much of an opinion on a policy matter, really. It's ultimately a matter for government to determine what arrangements it wants to put in place. As things stand, local government is a separate and independent tier of government, and has a separate and independent audit service. I would just add that the Public Service Reform Plan published last November provided for a review of the Local Government Audit Service, and whether or not the Local Government Audit Service should be part of or associated with the Controller and Auditor General's Office, and that's to be completed by June. So in a sense, the positioning of the Local Government Audit Service within the audit armour of the state is at the moment subject to review.
What's the current position with the project then for the incinerator in Poolbeg?
The current position, as I understand it, is that there have been further discussions in recent times between the City Council and the contractors for it, that both parties to the contract have agreed to extend the period of review for the facility to the end of August 2012 to allow time for finalisation of funding issues and some regulatory issues to be resolved. And it's the City Council's hope and expectation that the project work would start in November this year.
How many times has the contract been extended at this stage?
It probably has been extended 2, 3, 4. I'm not sure exactly how many times, Deputy, but a number of times.
And have the reasons for extension of the contract come from our side or from theirs in the project?
It comes from bits between the parties. I don't have any involvement in it at all.
Okay. But it is, because given its significance, obviously, to the
given its significance in terms of the scale of project, and because it is that kind of a partnership project, PPP, it is subject to review by the NDFA, and the latest documentation, I understand, is with the NDFA now.
Okay, but would your department or your office be keeping an active?
We're represented on the project board, which is a kind of an advisory steering board for the project. We don't have a direct operational involvement in it at all. We're part of the steering board. So our concern would be that if financing issues change, that there shouldn't be any greater or further liability created that might ultimately devolve to the Exchequer.
Who sits on that board then, from the department?
From the department, the principal officer with responsibility for the waste management is a member of the board.
In terms of the cost of the project that was estimated in 2005, do you have that figure?
I can't off the top of my head, Deputy, I'm sorry, recall. I don't have details on the cost.
Okay. Because there must be an estimation that was made, I suppose, at that time as to how much this was going to cost the state by the time the incinerator was then built and what would happen after that. And since that would have been done in 2005, we've seen the contract change significantly in terms of the partnership to the project on the private side. We've also seen a number of other changes in relation to the waste market in Dublin and the 4 regions, in, I suppose, waste trends in general, and a couple of interesting High Court judgments. So things have changed quite a bit since then, so I'll be interested to see what the estimation was then as to how it matches up today. The cost so far today borne by the department is in the region of 6 to 7 million, is that correct?
Sorry?
The department has spent on this project directly 6 or 7 million?
The department provided funding of 7.56 million. That's all we were involved with. The overall spend by the city, I understand, is of the order of 80 million, but the department grant aid was limited and provided a number of years ago in relation to the client's rep.
Okay. Because I have a breakdown here from Councillor Paddy McCartan as to the costs that have been spent per year on the project by the City Council and in the different areas. So if we look at, say, client representative services, 25.75 million have been spent since this project was initiated. What are client representative services?
They're services provided by a consultancy in the planning and development of the project.
It's almost 26 million.
It's planning, design, legal due diligence for the contract, probably public awareness type activities, etc. It's, all of the support services associated with the City Council's participation.
Sorry, Deputy, is that where your 7.5 million went to?
That's where the 7.5 million went to, yes.
From the department went into that particular spend?
Client representative services, it's just under 26 million.
Yeah.
Because we have then other consultancy at 3.3 million. What's other consultancy?
I don't know, Deputy. I don't have those figures. We're not involved in the funding.
I know you're not involved in the funding, but the Hennessy report, which was commissioned by a minister in your department, was set up to examine the potential financial risks associated with the project within a given set of scenarios. And it was considered in consultation with the Attorney General, and it was brought to government.
Yes.
So your department has been very much involved in what has been going on here, in terms of knowing what's been going on, because you've been keeping an active eye on it, as was instructed by the previous minister. So when I see things like 25.745 million on client representative services, and I don't know what they are. I see other consultancy at 3.3 million. I don't know what they are. Land acquisition at 43.7 million. Legal fees at 1.8 million. And public relations at 4.3 million. 4.3 million on public relations for what? It's an industrial incinerator to burn waste on behalf of 4 local authorities. What's the 4.3 million for? Just focusing on the land acquisition, 43.7 million. There have been CPOs with this project, and there were some CPOs very recently. Do you know how much was spent on those CPOs? When they couldn't obtain a foreshore licence from the department, the Dublin City Council then had to go and request CPOs to get the land directly. How much did that cost the taxpayer?
I don't have those kind of detailed figures with me here today, Deputy.
I'd love to know what the valuation on the land was and when that valuation was set, because that land was purchased quite recently.
It's a project that is managed by, it's sponsored by and managed by Dublin City Council.
But you're on the board. The department's on the board for the steering committee.
The department is on an advisory group. As far as this is concerned, it's not a management board.
I think you said on the steering board. That's what I noticed
said
here.
yes. Yeah. It's called I think it's called the project steering group. That's the title of it, but it's an advisory group.
But when you commissioned the Hennessy report, and that were you Secretary General at the time?
Yes.
Yes. And that would have come across your desk, and it would have looked at all of these issues. And the Hennessy report was published in 2000 and well, actually, it was only published in 2011. And the figures I have are up to 2011 that I got from Councillor Paddy McCartan. And they include these things. This 25.7 million on client representative services, 3.3 million on other consultancy, land acquisitions, 43.7 million, legal fees of 1.8 million, public relations of 4.3 million. It comes to 80 million, 80.5 million in total. And we don't know what it was spent on, other than that headline of public relations, 4.3 million. It's public money. And we can't see how it's been spent, and we don't know if there's any value for it. And we didn't make the decision to spend it. The minister didn't make the decision, and the councillors didn't make the decision. None of the elected people said 80 million on an incinerator in Poolbeg. And yet there it has been spent. It still hasn't been built. We don't know if it's going to be built. And we're looking at these figures. It's extraordinary. But you don't have any answers. Even though we had a Hennessy report commissioned into this that was published this year by your department, it would have come across your desk, and you're telling me you don't know what this is.
I'm telling you that the Hennessy report came across my desk. The Hennessy report was produced in 2010. The Hennessy report is published, was brought to government by Minister Hogan in 2011, and was published. And the Hennessy report and all its detail is on the department's website. I just cannot recall the individual figures that are in the Hennessy report here and now, and I don't have that copy of the Hennessy report with me. I don't have direct responsibility or involvement on a day-to-day basis in terms of the operational costs or the management costs as far as the Poolbeg project is concerned.
No one's taking responsibility for this, and that's my problem as an elected representative for the area, but also a member of this committee in Dáil Éireann. No one's taking responsibility for this. And the councillors can't find the answers, and the TDs can't find the answers.
But these are answers that the council must get from the council elected members must get from the council's management.
Because what where Deputy Murphy is at in terms of his questioning is where I was at when I was asking the questions. And it is frustrating, and maybe even more frustrating for those that are closer to the project and can see the expenditure going on, knowing that there seems to be no one, I won't say in control, but no one can have an input into this or can extract the information and the costings that a public accounts committee would want. So I suggested, when I was speaking to you, that the local government audit service surely must have a role in relation to the questions and the concerns that have been aired here by Deputy Murphy. So as the Dáil's Public Accounts Committee, could we ask you to engage with the local government audit service to investigate this? Because that would seem to me to be the only route. You are going to continue to tell Deputy Murphy that this is a matter for somebody outside of the remit of this committee, but yet in some way attached to the department by way of its accountability. So I am trying to find a way to if you like, get to the detail of this, because that primetime special report concerned this committee. It gave rise to concerns, rather, by members of this committee. So can we ask, as a Public Accounts Committee, will you ask the Local Government Audit Service to investigate the matters raised here at this committee and report back directly to the CNAG's office?
Chairman, I'm not sure whether I can actually ask the Local Government Audit Service to report directly to the CNAG's office.
Well, okay, then, sorry, can I rephrase that? Because I want to get down to the detail of this, and I want to help Deputy Murphy and the other members of the committee who are interested in this. Arising from this discussion, can you, as the accounting officer within your department, request the Local Government Audit Service to investigate the spend from start to finish, right up to date, on the Poolbeg project, and report then back to your department, where you can then make a decision to give a copy of that report to the CNAG? Is that a possibility? If it is, what could the time frame be for that to happen and to trigger the investigation that's required? And would you please comment on that?
Chairman, Deputy Murphy has referred to the Hennessy report, and the fact that the Hennessy report examined the financial risk associated with the project. The government concluded that the Hennessy report findings were confined to a specific set of scenarios set out in the report, that there was no national policy reason to intervene in the project, and that decisions in relation to the project were a matter for the two parties to the contract. So I just need to put that on the record, first of all, that's the government position. Secondly, I accept, yes, we're moving forward now from that to the request which you have made. You're sort of using the word investigate as if there was something wrong here, and I've no evidence at all that there's anything wrong here. This is a very significant project, clearly, in terms of scale, but it's also a project which, I have no reason not to say that it's absolutely necessary in waste or desirable in waste management terms. In terms of waste volumes and projections of waste volumes and destinations, etc. For waste in the Dublin region.
I don't mean to interrupt. Just on that point, because I'm trying to figure out estimations of when this incinerator in 1999 was when we first started spending money on it. It's now 2012 and it still isn't built. Yeah. In 2007, Dublin City Council, one of the 4 local authorities that's collecting waste for this incinerator, collected about 198,000 tonnes of waste. In 2009, it collected about 130,000. At the same time, recycling increased from 30% to 41% in the same period. Now, on another 3 years. So that level of waste generated by one of the regional authorities alone would have come down again significantly, and recycling would have increased again significantly. Now, if we don't provide 320,000 tonnes of waste from the 4 local authorities, we will be exposed to fines on the part of the taxpayer because of this put-or-pay clause with the facility that's in the contract with the Covanta. And those fines, we have estimated, could come into the millions. Is that, sorry, Mr. Lewis, is that incorrect? Or? Sorry, I thought Mr. Lewis, you were shaking your head. Is that?
Sorry, I slightly lost my concentration.
320,000 tonnes we have to provide in waste from the 4 local authorities in the region. And if we don't, we are then exposing the taxpayer to liabilities because there's a fine share if we don't produce that amount every year. And what I'm saying to you is that since 2007 to 2009, we've seen a significant reduction in the amount of waste produced and a significant increase in the amount of recycling. And we're now 3 years on later from that, and the incinerator still isn't built. So what confidence do we have that we actually do need a 600,000 tonne facility? And what confidence do we have that we're going to meet that 320,000 tonne target?
In terms, Deputy, of waste volume, first of all, as you identify, yes, volumes of waste have declined in recent years. There was a recent publication from the EPA in relation to municipal waste volume. In 2010, it was 16% lower than 2007. But there are 2 points that I think I'd have to make as far as that's concerned. That's a national figure. The reduction in volume of waste in the Dublin region is much less significant than in other parts of the country. Waste volume in Dublin fell by only 1% in 2009, for example, compared to a national waste reduction of 8.4%.
I have 198,000 in 2007 going into 130,000 tonnes.
Well, my information in terms of the latest EPA publication, that's what I'm giving you in terms of figures. The EPA very recently published the National Waste Report for 2010, and in that report for 2010, the EPA, based on the ESRI's modelling, project municipal waste volumes to grow by 825,000 tonnes to nearly 3.7 million tonnes overall in the period to 2025.
Are you saying that the 4 regions then are going to fill the 600,000 incinerator?
I'm not in a position to say any such thing, Deputy. All I can do is give you an indication that while waste volumes have reduced nationally, they haven't reduced nationally by as much in Dublin, or they haven't reduced as much in Dublin as they have nationally, and the projection in the longer term is that waste volumes will increase again. And we do have to plan on for a long-term time horizon rather than a very short one. Secondly, we do have to look at the policy context within which waste is managed. Yes, we have a successful and active waste prevention programme, and yes, we have very significant progress on waste recycling. But if you go back to the Dublin Waste Management Plan, within which the project has been brought forward, that's predicated on 60% recycling of household waste to be achieved by 2013, and we're at 41% of household waste recycling in 2009. And if you look around Europe, you can generally see that it's the countries who are, have high levels of recycling who also use waste recovery.
I'm not against incineration. I think it's necessary as part of our waste management matrix. My problem is with this project, because I just can't understand where the money's been going. I can't understand any of the figures that it's based on. We don't control the waste in the 4 local authorities now. We're not collecting it. So how can we guarantee that we'll provide 320,000 tonnes of waste from those 4 authorities when we don't control the waste?
I can only say that waste policy is subject to development, and the Minister has indicated that he will be producing a waste policy document, and that he intends to bring that to government by Easter.
But there was a legal judgment that said that the City Council was breaking competition laws, I think, the McKechnie judgment, and said that we could not force private collectors to take their rubbish anywhere, because when they collect it, in effect, it's their property, it's a commodity for them, and they can treat it how they wish within the overall policy. So we can't force them to bring it to the incinerator in Poolbeg. We're actually appealing that case. How much are we spending on appealing that case to the Supreme Court, I think? Do you know?
Dublin City Council is appealing it.
Yeah.
Yes, I've absolutely...
Because the judgment, actually, it's quite interesting, was pretty solid. I mean, it said the report that they had prepared had been massaged, I think was the terminology that the judge used. And again, the local authority is appealing it, I think at the cost of a couple of million, 2-point-something million, I don't have a figure in front of me. And there's nothing we can do about that, and there's nothing the councillors can do about that, and it just seemed to me like a strange case to appeal. That judgment stands currently. The Minister can't introduce any policy to go against that judgment. We won't control the waste in the 4 regional authorities, so how are we going to get 320,000 tonnes to the incinerator?
The question of waste collection is a very active one within the government programme. As you know, Minister published a consultation document on the waste market last year. We have very substantial public interest in the consultation document. We had over 700 responses in terms of the organisation of the waste market, and the conclusions of that will be brought together in the waste policy, which the Minister intends to produce, bring to government by Easter. I can appreciate your concern, and I appreciate the concern that the chairman has identified. This is one of the largest public projects in the state at the current time, and I can appreciate, that there's very considerable and very legitimate interest at all levels of government as far as this is concerned. So I will certainly talk to the local government auditor as the chairman requests, and ask. I'll speak specifically about the level of audit carried out in this area so far, and represent the need for specific engagement on this project as it moves forward. I can also seek to, some of the figures that you've asked for, I just haven't had them.
It's 2.2 million on the legal fees. I just confirmed it there for being the case.
See if we can, produce a report on the cost information and make it available. I'm a little bit tied in terms of, if you like, the formalities of the local government auditor and the extent of reporting that's that I can ask for to be done directly to this committee.
But what I'm asking you to do, really, Ms. Tallon, is that you've heard we've had our exchanges this morning about the incinerator and the costs and the public concern around the costs, and the fact that, to a degree, public representatives are not central to this. Deputy Murphy, as a member of the committee, has expressed those concerns directly to you. And I'm simply asking that I said investigation and you were concerned about that, but it is an investigation. Investigate the questions that we're asking, essentially, is what I'm asking to do. And surely, as the accounting officer, at your disposal, the audit service, that you can get the information that we're asking for yourself as a department, and then to give it to us here. And that would be done as quickly as possible, in order that we would understand the cost implications here, the possible exposure to the state, if any, and that Deputy Murphy can have answered the questions that he put to you here this morning. And if we can reach an agreement on that, well, then the time frame is a matter for yourself, but you know the urgency of it. I think that's... Is that what you're asking?
A few more questions, if I could, actually. I wasn't...
But is that what you're asking generally? Because...
Yeah, but...
We're going to be...
It's essential that we get answers and we get them quickly.
In fairness, asking questions, and the accounting officer will more or less be telling you as you go along. That is another authority that is responsible.
Well, it's actually been quite...
I'm coming back to you again and asking, in terms of what we've asked the accounting officer to do, are you agreeable with that?
I'm agreeable with that, yeah.
Fine. So we've agreed on that. And you have agreed, Ms. Helen, to take that piece of work on.
Yes, okay. Chairman, I'll provide a report as quickly as I can.
Now that you know that that's happening,
thank you.
Will you deal with your questions?
Thank you, Chair.
Send it on.
Was the Hennessy report a waste of time and a waste of money?
4,000.
It was a matter entirely within the discretion of the Minister of the day to appoint an authorised person to carry out a study.
Did you advise him on it at the time?
I didn't advise him not to carry out a study.
Okay. Did you help set the scenarios, the potential scenarios, or the parameters in which it was to be carried out?
No, the Minister of the day had concerns in terms of potential scenarios. So we had a number of discussions around the scenarios, but at the end of the day, the terms of reference were the Minister's.
Do you agree with its findings?
I've no reason not to agree with the findings within the particular set of scenarios defined.
Okay, because that piece you read out earlier was quite interesting. Trends in waste generation, recycling, market share and regulation make it likely that operation of the agreement will also be very expensive for Dublin City Council. And that scenarios envisaged in the terms of reference for this report tend to suggest that Dublin City Council may well be paying for a considerable period of time for the processing of significantly more waste than it is able to deliver to the facility. That's basically saying, in Hennessy's words, that Dublin City Council is not going to be able to provide the waste to the incinerator, and Dublin City Council is going to have to pay for that, and that's taxpayers' money.
Well, again, Deputy, I would simply have to acknowledge that there has been further discussion clearly between the parties to the project since the Hennessy report, and I'm not a party to those, but...
The board member on the steering committee, is that person a party to those discussions?
No.
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 So who's a party to the discussions?
They're directly between the City Council, management, and the project, the contractor, and I presume the City Council has appropriate advisors.
You agree with that from Hennessy? That statement about the trends in waste generation, about how it's going to leave the taxpayer liable? I
would read all of the comments and conclusions in the Hennessy report within the context of the scenarios set out.
What does that mean?
It means that the Hennessy report was, if you go back to the terms...
Is it rubbish then? Because the scenarios, even good scenarios. I mean, if you're saying that you agree with that just in the context of the scenarios it put out, then what are you actually agreeing with? Either the report or not, and the conclusions that it makes.
I'm agreeing with the report within its... I can only agree with the report
but you didn't make the scenarios up. They're not like...
Within its own terms of
they're
reference.
Not ridiculous scenarios.
I would have to say life moves on. Government will look again at policy. There will be a new policy statement from the Minister. There will be new consideration of the waste management and the waste market and regulation of the waste market. There have been discussions, as I said, between the parties. So life is moving on in a variety of different contexts as far as this project is concerned. And the Hennessy report may be more or less relevant as time moves on.
Well, life does move on, and we did a value for money report on this incinerator in 2005. And since then, we've got a completely different private partner to the contract. The contract has elapsed 3 or 4 times at least. We've lost control of waste in the Dublin region, which we have to provide to the incinerator. There's been the second set of compulsory purchase orders because the then Minister at the time wouldn't grant the foreshore licences. We are appealing a case in the McKechnie judgment to the High Court, that of course, Supreme Court, of course, of 2.2 million already. We have the Hennessy report now, which it seems already is out of date for some reason. We have the taxpayer liable, we have trends in waste going down, we've got costs going up, 80-something million, and the thing isn't even built yet. I don't know where we're going with this.
We have significant waste volumes in the Dublin region.
But not enough to fill the incinerator.
Which haven't gone down as much as elsewhere, and we have projections for waste growth over the next 15 to 20 years. We also have evidence and an intent to improve and continue to improve our performance in recycling, but evidence and experience elsewhere to show that high performance on recycling does not preclude...
No, but again, you made that point previously, and I talked about this incinerator. In the Environmental Committee in the last DOL, I wasn't a member here then, the private partner to this came in and admitted that they'd be importing waste from outside the region to feed this thing. He admitted that, and I have the note here in front of me from them, because I came in as a councillor at the time. We're not going to be able to fill this incinerator, it's too big. Endeavour have come to us with a separate proposal for an incinerator at 400,000 tonnes capacity. They won't have a put or pay clause, i.e. if we can't provide the waste, and I think we can't, the taxpayer will not be fined for that. And they're going to buy the shares in their proposal from Covanta, so pay them, Covanta will not lose any money, no one will lose any money, it'll be a much smaller facility, and there won't be any liability to the taxpayer. Are we considering their proposal?
We're not considering their proposal. Again, it's a matter for Dublin City Council, and I think the City Manager...
But you spent some money on this project. The Department of Environment has spent some money.
We've spent 7.5 million on the client.
And you're on the steering committee. But these are important points to share still, before we get...
I understand that, but I think that you've made your position clear, and the only way that we're going to get the information that you're asking for is to form some basis of it through a report from the accounting officer here,
And you come back to us.
and it will come back to us.
But it's good to get the questions on the
but
record
you're
so they know what questions I have for it to come back to us with. They can then come to the transcript and go,
I think we're fairly clear.
Deputy Murphy, well, this Endeavour thing I've just opened up on. I'd like to know why we're not considering the Endeavour project.
Because it's a council.
But we're on the steering group and we spend money on it.
We're not on, we're on a steering group. I'm not here to defend the department. I'm trying to open it up. I'm trying to be a pen.
I'll ask one more question, Chair. Can I ask one more question and then on? There's been a case in relation to state aid, that we're breaching state aid rules in relation to the Poolbeg project, in terms of some of the things that the council has done. Can you comment on that?
There has been a state aid complaint, yes, and a response has gone back to the European Commission from Ireland in relation to that state aid. In fact, there have been 2 complaints forwarded to the department. There's no decision as yet from the Commission in relation to either of those.
Okay. Do we know when we might get something back?
No.
No. Okay. Thank you, Chair. Thank you.